to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Tony Arterburn. First, a few announcements. Be sure to check out our new show. It happened May the 4th. That's available on YouTube and all podcast platforms. We have links for that in the description. Also, be sure to watch the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana, on Tubi and other streaming platforms. If you would like to help with our upcoming film fundraiser, we have links in the description. You can visit supportfkn.com. Anything is greatly appreciated and would help tremendously with our upcoming trip to Utah to finish up filming. If you'd like to help in any other way, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Don't forget to get a Rokfin premium membership at rokfin.com/FKN+. You'll get access to all our premium content and all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin. Finally, we are booking guests for July. If you have suggestions or maybe you'd like to be a guest, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome Tony Arterburn. At the age of 19, he enlisted as a U.S. Army paratrooper and military policeman. He is a veteran of Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq. He has been in radio broadcasting since 2013 and has been a guest host for The David Knight Show and InfoWars. He is the host of the Arterburn radio transmission, co-host of America Unplugged and the Wise Wolf Gold and Crypto Show, and founder and owner of Wise Wolf Gold and Silver Exchange. Tony, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank
I
you
look
so
forward to
much.
this for a while. We set this up, I think, a couple months ago.
Yeah, man,
So-
it's great to finally get you on. I'm looking forward to this discussion. I love the work you're doing, very important. And this seems to be an era of unavoidable revelations. I used to have a much different perspective about the events that have been unfolding the past few years. What I used to see as an attempted depopulation and technocratic enslavement of humanity, it's still that, only the plans seem to have been falling to pieces for the ruling class. I now consider that maybe there's always been a greater force at play, pulling strings and steering the collective at some level to come to the understanding that we are in this slave system. But with the destruction of an ancient money magic control system, there's going to be struggles and obstacles for us to overcome. And one of those is having a level of preparedness financially, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And you've offered solutions to help folks prepare accordingly, which we're going to get into. But before we get into anything, this is your first time on. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your work.
Well, again, thanks for having me on, and I look forward to the discussion. You're absolutely right. I mean, we're in unprecedented times and uncharted waters, really, historically, in a lot of ways. We've had normalcy bias I have normalcy bias. We all do. We all have some form of where we think tomorrow will be like today, because yesterday was like it was. But I don't think having that attitude is very healthy anymore. And a lot of my background, just perspective wise, I watched my dad build companies when I was a kid. He came out of nothing. He wasn't from a wealthy family. He built himself up and chartered a bank when he was in his 20s and built convenience stores and had a fuel business. And I just rode around with my grandpa, and that's what we did. I just thought that was normal. That's how what you did. You worked every day. You worked 7 days a week, and you built stuff, and it was always trying to make payroll, and that's what you did. That's how it was my example to the world. And I learned a lot from him, and I learned a lot in the mid 90s after things like Ruby Ridge and Waco. My dad became very aware, I just think even more political in the sense that he was just astonished and shocked at what the overreach of the government and how they he targeted people like in Waco and other things, and the assault weapons ban, all that stuff. And so I got to see pretty much early on that we had a challenge ahead of us as far as preserving the Constitution and preserving freedom and liberty. And those were things that were just drilled into me. That's what that was part of my wheelhouse. I listened to talk radio when I was a kid. I mean, I was a very unusual teenager riding around listening to the conservative talk radio and people like Lieutenant Colonel Bo Greitz, who he was the most highly decorated Green Beret in Vietnam. I heard him speak. I got to meet him. He was on radio. I used to listen to his show. And I'm talking like I had a driver's license at 15. As my grandfather died, I lived with my grandmother. So they got me a driver's license. I was like, I thought I was a man. I'm driving around listening to talk radio and just, I'm into the wheelhouse of things that I'm into now, but just it was a good start. And I still wanted to join the military. I still, very patriotic and wanted to join the warrior class, all those things. So that was something I did out of high school. I competed in powerlifting. I was a world champion powerlifter. I represented the United States when I was younger and did that, from a very young age. So, I just wanted to do things that were excellent in my mindset. And so one of those things was joining the military, and I was a paratrooper and military policeman. But I got to do 3 foreign wars by the time I was 24 years old. You have the VFWs, the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I did 3 of them. That's the intro to my show, the Arterburn radio transmission, is a veteran of 3 foreign wars. But I'm not like a veteran. I'm not your typical veteran. I'm more like Smedley Butler, who wrote War is a Racket. I'm more in that. I'm anti-war, skeptical of the state, skeptical of foreign policy maneuvers that take our warrior class and put them in unwinnable wars. But I still love the mentality. I think you should always have the skills. And you should, look at things like through the prism of warfare, and it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So those are things I hold those 2 things simultaneously in my head. As a matter of fact, I just finished my show. We're kind of talking about that with them, the Democrats putting together a bill that's going to make women part of the draft, and this is setting off a whole other conversation. I'm like, well, can we even have a talk on the draft itself? Like, why do you need it? Again, it's more of, I think, a standpoint of just understanding history about false flags and how we get into things. So I got to see that firsthand. I was part of the first Army company on the ground in Kandahar, Afghanistan after 9/11. I got to see, first there. See how things are done. Same thing with Iraq. I was part of the tail end invasion of Iraq. I spent a year in northern Iraq, in Mosul, which is built on the site of the ancient city of Nineveh. So if you're familiar with your Bible, and when you were talking about the global elite, it's interesting. It's kind of, my life has been one of instruction for me, like things that I learned. And that's where my education comes from. As I read probably 200 books while I was in Iraq. I just ordered books all the time. I read history, philosophy, biography, whatever I get my hands on. I was 22, 23, this is my education, but it was in real time in living through that part of history. And I remember they took us to a site, that was Nimrod's palace. Nimrod in the Bible, but he was a leader of the Syrian Empire. And that's where supposedly the Tower of Babel was, right? That was where they built the Tower of Babel. And so that's a great metaphor for, it's like, yeah, you see their plans falling apart. And if you remember that story about the Tower of Babel, they had one language, one world government, one thing, one kingdom, right? We're going to build this great structure, will be greater than God. And then, it gets broken into all these languages. And throughout the Bible, what you hear things like you don't hear about one world government unless you're talking about like you're referencing something possibly in Revelation, but it's mostly about the nations. So it's something that there is a force at work. There is the elites, and they have. I get told, don't call them elites. Well, there's the parasitic. There's the parasitic class, the parasite class.
Yeah.
There's the globalist class, whatever they are, the deep state degenerates. They have their own, they want to build a one world government. They tell you to, you're going to own nothing. You're going to be happy. There's the Great Reset. There's all these things, right? And you're so correct. It's just dead on arrival. Now this is a formidable foe, and it's very insidious, and they pit people against each other, and they run simulations. It's high grade, high octane mind control. It's everywhere, but they get lazy. I think they jumped the gun on stuff. I think at this level where we are in 2024, I mean, my goodness. I mean, my show, the Arterburn radio transmit, I was following Mark Levin every day on traditional talk radio in San Antonio. And people were like, what is he even talking about? This is before 2020. And people would go, I mean, I just be, what are you talking about? A great reset? What are you talking about? New World Order? It was just that traditional, like kind of, talk radio audience kind of boomer where they're like, let's bomb Iran, and it's like, that was their wheelhouse. Like Democrats are bad. We're going to turn this thing red. And I'm like, yeah, but there's a bigger thing here at play. And you want to, so, I get on air and talk about those kind of issues. And now I'm still on air there. I do one show a week. And now it's not so far off anything, is it? Like people tune in, they're like, oh yeah, Tony was right about that. Yeah. I don't get an award for it, but I do, I've been on the forefront of things that were big changes, whether it was COVID 1984 and coming down the pipe when I was talking about like what the last quarter of 2019 was very important. I even changed where I lived because of it. I was like, guys, that's $6 trillion that the Fed just printed out of nothing to prop up the over. And I go, is anybody in it called the repo markets? And I go, is anybody else watching this exodus of CEOs? Where are they going? It's kind of like one of those movies when you see the forest animals leaving the forest and you're still in it. It's like, what do they know? Or the like the people, the folks that knew what was going to happen with the tsunami back in 2004, when the water receded and it gets, pulls back. That was on my birthday, by the way, in 2004, that big tsunami. And, see the people that knew started getting out of there. Like it's going to come back and it's going to flood everything. Well, there was people out there taking pictures and stuff. Yeah, that was what the last quarter of 2019 was. I'm like, is anybody else watching this? Like, there's crazy stuff on the horizon, and guess what? Boom! It just 2020 was like it's just a shotgun blast, and it's like everything's coming out at once. You had Trump assassinating the Iranian general Soleimani. I'll never forget that because I had to cover for David Knight on InfoWars. They called me the night before. And I was going to talk. I mean, I just like that was just getting the breaking news. I open up in the morning and Alex Jones comes on and we're in the studio talking about it together. It's surreal, like it's, and then, 2-3 weeks later, you're talking, and this is January 2020, 2 or 3 weeks later, you're talking about this lab leak thing, what is this thing? Oh, and everybody, and I just knew like there was something to all this, and to me that's when the Great Reset began. Like that's the opening salvo of that decade, because they have goals, they write them down, they tell you about them, they're milestones. Whether it's Agenda 21, which is not Agenda 2021, it's Agenda for the 21st Century from 1992, and then you get the milestones, which is Agenda 2030, and all these other NGOs and all these weird things. Like they have their same things that link up to 2030. So yeah, they're going to run, and this is my opinion. There's some things that are still concealed from us, but I think if you put the clues together, they have an agenda, they have a timeline, and they're following that. So that's where I've been the last kind of on hyperdrive the last 4 years. I'm doing shows and running my businesses for precious metals, and I would definitely want to get into talk about that because of the programs that I've done, like for everyday people. But that's been my calling. I think is just I take my background, things that I've done with my life as a younger man, and lessons that I've learned, and then just try to bring it to the conversation and what we're looking at now.
Perfect, man. Great introduction. Let's take a look back at how everything has unfolded, especially since the events of 2020. Are you optimistic about any of the seeming small victories that have been on the side of humanity? The level of desperation that seems to be coming out of the ruling class agendas at times? Is this all part of their plan, or does it seem like we could be having enough small victories to where it's headed in the right direction?
I'm very optimistic. I mean, honestly, I mean, aside from the challenge, this is pure evil that we're up against. I mean, I'm not being hyperbolic. Like, this is pure evil. You talk about central bank digital currencies. You talk about people like Yuval Harari with the World Economic Forum that says people are hackable animals. I mean, do you
Mm.
realize how dangerous that language is? When you start, well, that's why the great war propagandist, if you go back to the war, this Spanish American War, there was a painter called Remington, and William Randolph Hearst, sent him down to Cuba. It's like, me some pictures. So you provide the pictures, I'll provide the war, because William Randolph Hearst, that's where they based Citizen Kane off of. He had all the papers. He was the yellow journalist, was going to build. They'll make the war. So they use the propaganda, of things like the Spanish is like a brute, and is like an almost ape-like, and he's just gonna beating everyone to death and all this stuff. And they did the same thing with the Japanese in World War, just dehumanizing the enemy.
Hmm.
Well, when they're softening you up for like, oh, you're just alone in space, you're just a product of an accident, of a big bang, and nothing matters, and
Hmm.
you know, um, we're in charge because we have fake money, and it's like we're better than you because somehow we have close proximity to make fake currency units and control the military industrial complex.
Hello again, friends. Are you sick of having mediocre health, excess weight, low libido, feeling weak, and waking up tired all the time? If you feel like you have no motivation, no diet plan, or that you may even be aging too fast, oh my. Or maybe you're just anxious and irritable at times and feeling low at others, but you know deep in your heart that there must be more to life than feeling average or crappy most of the time. If you want to work with someone who's going to help you move out of the comfort zone of slow decay and degeneration and into the vibrant, healthy being you were meant to be, my friend Christian Yordanov's health transformation program may be just what you need. In just 4 short months, you could be a new person. Christian's program can help you upgrade and overhaul your entire physiology. You're going to regain your energy and vigor, sleep better, think more clearly, have better overall mood, and much less anxiety. You're going to also start to release the stubborn weight and begin to gain back your confidence. So the question is, are you sick of settling for less? Are you done with surviving through the day? If you're ready to take control of your life and health and begin thriving like you were meant to, check out that link in the description to find out more about the Health Transformation Program and book a free intro call with Christian to discuss your situation and see how he can help you. Be sure to remember to mention FKN when booking, and he's going to have a special gift just for you.
That's what makes them special to them. I don't know, to themselves. But I think the good news here is that they've already showed their hand. The picture that they paint is awful. Like, they don't even try to sell you anything that is beautiful or grand or that you're going to self-actualize. Like, even the Soviets had great propaganda. Like, they would be like the supremacy of the state, and look how wonderful we are, and look at our, their national anthems and all this stuff. And people would kind of yawn and went like, okay, great. Like, well, okay, well, it's still, I guess it's culture. We're in this together. They don't even do that right. They're terrible at this. And I think it's because their predecessors and their ancestors were really good at it. I mean, you look at the JFK assassination. Wow. That you talk about bold and broad daylight, and then like all the occultic, like Dealey Plaza and the 33rd parallel and the killing of the king and all this stuff. Like
Yeah,
they
the
really
different
tried.
compartmentalized levels that
Oh
seem to
yes.
go on forever. Yeah, man.
And it's, if you can't, like my friend Donald Jeffries, I do a show with him
Yeah,
every
love Don.
Saturday called America Unplugged. I mean, Don is just, I mean, I read his books before I met him. You get into the JFK assassination, the intricacies, you could spend a lifetime on just the amount of stuff that they had to do. And 9/11 is kind of more sloppy. You get a lot of the Aleister Crowley stuff, and then
Yeah.
you get all the symbology and Lucky Larry Silverstein insuring the buildings, and the BBC saying the World Trade Center 7 is about to come down, and the lady is still standing. It's like it just collapsed and it's still standing behind her, and you just get, and you can't see the high. It's one of the original Invisible Enemy, folks. So you can't see the hijackers or the passports found in the rubble. They got really lazy. And then with all of this stuff,
Yeah.
I think this is their big push was Agenda 2030. I think the opening salvo at the beginning of this decade, they just came out and pushed, and they're just giving it all they got. But they seem lost. I think, it's like, why aren't people buying into this? They love fear. They feed off of it. It's very vampiric. And there's a spiritual component to this. This isn't just political. But at the end of the day, you see this, it kind of reminds me, there was a story that Pat Buchanan told about being with Ronald Reagan at the end of the Cold War, and they go to Reykjavik to meet with Gorbachev. And this is back when, what's crazy about it, we don't even have summits anymore. We used to have like foreign policy summits and deals and brokering things in this country. We don't do that anymore, and that should be alarming to all of us. Like, they don't even care. Like, they're not even. We just lost the petrodollar, by the way, folks. That should have been headline news everywhere, and it's not. I don't know why I'm covering it. It's weird. I'm not I'm not that influential. But Buchanan talked about being in the room with all these old Bolsheviks and communists, from the Soviet state, and but they were still the mighty Soviet empire. And he said it just, in contrast, you had like, and I'm not shilling for Reagan or anything. I'm not I'm not that guy, but I'm just saying, like, here you had this actor from California says This Morning in America and tear down this wall, and then you have these old Bolsheviks, and he said they just looked tired and their bones creaked, and it really reminds me of where we are with these globalists now. They just look tired. They don't sell you anything that excites you. They want to put you in a pod and eat bugs for Greta or get a 15-minute city. I mean, what are you selling here? Like, I don't understand. Like, they expect you to like downgrade yourself. It's like, on one hand, you can get like, hey, this is us, humanity. We take care of each other. We can create a better food system. We can create desalination technology. We can clean up the ocean. We can do all, like, that's what I hear from people, like, oh, let's plant trees. Let's control our own farmland. Let's stay out of wars. Like, that's the side I'm on. I know whatever politics that is, throw me in there. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, just leave me alone. Let's have free markets at the best of our ability, and sound money and be able to trade, have a future. And the elites sell you war. They sell you death. They sell, like, that's what they want to sell you. They don't call it that, but that's really what it is. If you drill down to the support for Ukraine, where does that come from? Is it because Russia's evil and they're going to take over Europe? Russia couldn't do that, by the way. In by the year 2050, they'll have the same population we had in 1947. Okay, folks, they've lost. They lose 2 million net people a year in They have an aging population, but they're still proud people. So if you know these kind of stats, you're looking at things like, like the war in Ukraine, as I mentioned. We're just going to pour money. Why are we pouring? We're trying to get into a war. Like, they're trying to build one. And we've been doing that since the fall of the Soviet Union. We're trying to build Russia into an enemy. Same thing with China, with Taiwan, and all this stuff. If you start reading the tea leaves and like, what are these people doing? Well, they're psychopathic, and that's the health of the state, is the welfare, warfare, military-industrial complex. That's what it is. That's their mother's milk, fake money and fake wars with real consequences, and that's what drives them. At the end of the day, that's what drives them. It's a terrible sell.
Yeah.
I mean, and now they're going to have to, in order to do this on a bigger scale, they got to do it even big. That's what worries me. Like, you back them into the corner.
Yeah.
It's like they'll bring the temple down on all of us just to save face, so they won't be, so they already hate us anyway. It's like, what do they care if millions die or billions? I mean, what do they really care at the end of the day? These are the same. Like, we've allowed the people who don't like people to run all the people. Okay? Like that's where we are. It's a bizarre system, but I am still optimistic because every day I'm meeting people that would have never, had they not pushed this hard,
Mm-hmm.
would have never been like, wait a minute, like it would just kind of keep going, bread and circus, watch American Idol, like it. There's people that approach me now like, hey, I finally listened to your show and or I heard this and you're right about that or whatever, It's not to say that's about me or I'm right. It's just the genre of being able to cover these forbidden topics, like, like your show, like this is our wheelhouse, and now this is our time. So I am optimistic to make a long story longer.
I am very optimistic as well, but I also can take a step back and see how many people are still reliant on a savior, a political savior, a president, someone in power that's going to come along and fix all of our problems. You look at how many people are going to still be going out to vote for Team Orange Man or Team Sleeping Blunder this year. It's very concerning how many people are still of the belief that this system will serve them or humanity in any way. I checked out a long time ago of the political system. I have no hope for it whatsoever. That's just me. I would burn it down to the ground and start over. But how do you feel about the current political state and where we can go from here?
Well, it's pretty depressing. So I mean, we'll start with that. It is very depressing. As an entrepreneur and somebody who looks at marketing and somebody's always been fascinated, like, how can I get, more customers on? I've left so much money on the table because I won't get involved in this, this whole thing because I just don't see, especially people get mad at me about the Trump thing. They're like, he's here, he's saving us. And I'm like, yeah, but did you not pay attention? I mean, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. Like, literally, we've done this before. So I feel like I'm in a parallel dimension. Like I went through 2020 and they didn't. And like, I mean, I'm like, so, but the mental gymnastics you have to go through to get there. And I just can't. And I don't think, like, just to boil it down for you. And I honestly believe this, and it doesn't come from political biases. No matter who wins in November, we lose. It doesn't really matter because you're given the illusion of choice. I don't think policy will change. If Trump didn't have the balls to get rid of his generals when they defied him in Syria so many times, how's he going to bring peace anywhere? I mean, I can give you many examples about the border wall and talk about bringing the troops home, changing foreign policy, changing policy in general. But then we can just talk about warp speed. We can do all that stuff. There's a military operation. I don't really the whole politics thing. The two parties are controlled by the same donors. Right. When they pass something bipartisan, I mean, that's how right? It's like the empire goes on, the border stays open, and that gives them so much, things to play with, whether it's a rogue attack or whether it's something they planned or the changing of demographics. I call it weapons of mass immigration. They got so many, but they both agree because if they didn't agree, somebody'd stop it. So I just I think the silver lining in all of this is that people are just tired. This is a Machiavellian trick to say, oh, you're free to choose. You can choose A or you can choose B. If you ask about the rest of the letters in the alphabet, we're going to call you an extremist. But if you can choose A or B, see, you're free to choose A or B. And then if you keep going, well, what about C? No, shut up. You shouldn't be asking about C. You're an extremist. And so that's the thing is like, we need to have not just A and B, but everything, people should be free to choose who governs them or how they're governed. Or, again, just going back to first principle, like you guys like democracy so much, well, then choke on it. I think you should have a bunch of choices. I think, I'm a fan of republics. I like representative government. I think we ought to, personally, I would advocate going back to the way we did the elections in the first 6 presidents we had. What was wrong with John Quincy Adams? He was great. He wasn't elected by the popular vote. Let's just go back to when the Congress, you know what? If you did that, it'd be a lot more important who your congressman was. and and you'd pay attention, and there would be a lot less grift. So, like, if we elected the president through Congress, which by constitutionally, by the way, there'd be a lot more congressmen. They've really screwed with you on that thing. I ran for Congress. I know this. In the Constitution, you're supposed to have representation for every 32,000 people. Well, a congressional district's like 800,000. So you'd add a lot more congressmen and women, right? So you'd have all these people, and you can real time see how they vote on every. I think it would change. We could somehow, because the elections, especially since the 17th Amendment, which is the direct election of senators from 1913. That's when the banksters stepped in and started electing your senators instead of your state legislature. Maybe you don't know that, but the senators were sent to Washington on behalf of the legislature, which made the legislature a lot more important, and they could recall them. The legislature, if you weren't serving them, like, you would just get recalled. So the whole system worked from the ground up a lot better. And that's when the banksters like, hey, we can't rely on these legislators, too many moving parts. Let's just get them directly elected through us. So the whole system of direct elections and all this stuff and the money flowing in through it, I'm up for some change, right? I don't think we need a constitutional convention, but I do think that, because I think there's too much mischief to go. But I like policy-wise, it's never going to happen. This is a fantasy that I'm talking about. But I would give up the popular vote if I could, because there's just too much mischief, and it's too wide, and it doesn't work. And I do want more choice, but I think that happens on the local level. It happens through your state legislature. It happens through your county, your city. We saw that through COVID. It was very important to know who your mayor was, to know who your sheriff was. And I see, these states decentralizing, putting up bullion banks and making gold and silver legal tender. This is all good stuff that's happening. So no, I'm not black-pilled in the sense that, it's all over, getting the bunker, or anything like that. But we have some monumental challenges, but the elections aren't going to fix them the way that they are now.
Right.
Like, you can't vote harder.
Let's talk about our financial situation, the looming crash that has been hanging over us like a dark thunder cloud for years now, that seems to be being held off in very delicate ways, and the interest rates continue to climb higher than people can afford. How do you see this unfolding?
Well, it goes back to the phraseology of the Great Reset. Okay, to touch on that again, they call it a Great Reset for a reason, and this is a phrase that I was talking about before COVID. This is the World Economic Forum put out, and others. We've had an experiment since 1971. You have to understand, we're literally living inside a real-time experiment. It's never been really done before, not on this large of a scale, with trillions, maybe quadrillions in valuation. And that's when the United States went off the gold standard. Richard Nixon closed the gold window. A whole host of reasons why he did that. But gold was $35 an ounce since Franklin Roosevelt told the American people to turn in their gold. It went from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce on purpose. And all that gold, most of it went to the Bank of International Settlements. You can go look at this history. It was illegal for you to own gold from 1933 to 1974. Gerald Ford made it legal for you to own gold. So this experiment, though, folks, this is what's crucial to watch. The fiat currencies, which means fiat means by decree. If you have a fiat currency, then the lifespan of that currency is generally 26 years. It has its apex, it goes into the circulation. There's an initial enrichment of things, like you have a lot of construction projects going on and build businesses, and there's lending and all this stuff. But what happens is the money supply continues to increase, which decreases the strength and purchasing power of that unit. And eventually people start to get out of the unit. Money velocity slows down. By the way, I wouldn't consider myself totally qualified. I mean, I'm not an economist, but I just know history. This is what happens. So 26 years is the average lifespan. So we've doubled it. And we did it with the world's reserve currency. So all these central banks stocked with dollars, buying into the system. The petrodollar, we just lost that. It was 50 years in the making, and we didn't even do anything. We just lost it. Like the Saudis are not going to they're using other currencies to denominate and sell of crude and all that. That's huge news. The petrodollar was a staple in the strength of the dollar itself. And you go back to like years like 2001, 75% of all the transactions that went on financially around the world were done in dollars. And since of all our weaponizing of the dollar and things that we've done, over the past many years, and especially the last 3 or 4 with Russia and everything else, with the Ukraine war, it has brought it down to like, low 40s in participation. So as the dollar continues to be used less and less around the world, and you lose statuses like the petrodollar, those dollars start to come home and be repatriated, and people cash out of those and go into things like gold or go into commodities or go into the Chinese yuan or whatever. It's going to have this reverberating effect in our own economy where these financial talking heads and all these people on financial, I don't see it. They don't talk about this, but it's coming. So the dollar has really been supplanted again, like it was the world's reserve currency. It stayed, it drove the price of gold down for years, like throughout the 90s. And I mean, gold was suppressed. It was down to $200 and $300 an ounce. The beginning of the 21st century is still $200-300 an ounce. Folks, it's not that gold has gone up either. That's another thing. It's like people are like, oh, the price of gold is up. Not really. It's about the same. It buys the same amount of clothes and oil and food and land that it did 100 years ago. It's about the same. The deal is that the dollar lost all of its power. It's through inflation, it's through debasement, and 80% of all the dollars ever created were created in the last 60 months. There's an insane amount of currency creation. So what happens is the rest of the world takes notice. The mainstream doesn't talk about it, so they want you in the casino, like you're going to stay in the system that you were in. You got normalcy bias, and then one day you wake up and you're like, well, wait a minute. I can't buy the same amount of things that I used to buy with my $20. What happened to my funds? So this is my wheelhouse and my mission is to tell people like, hey, gold and silver are money. You got to understand there's a difference between currency and money. The difference is currency can be money, but it has to have an intrinsic value. Our currency has no value other than the psychological value that we give it. And our rulers, they're not helping. They're not helping keep it strong or keep it in the circulation or keep money velocity up. As a matter of fact, Biden's economic advisor has written in the New York Times how we should lose the status of the currency of the world. I mean, who are these people? Like, it's due to the everyday American. Like the only reason we don't have, wheelbarrows full of cash to buy a loaf of bread is because the rest of the world uses our currency. I mean, our politicians have done a hell of a job debasing us. It took us 200 years to go $1 trillion of debt in this country because it was about $1 trillion when I was born. So about, 200 years. Now, we go $1 trillion in debt every 90 days. So this is insane times. They're just insane times. But I do think the silver lining is, and no pun intended on that, I do think people have an opportunity to really ask themselves, when they work, how do they want representation of that work? That's what money's supposed to be. So, if you're getting paid in dollars, consider getting out of those things as fast as possible and putting it in something else that will house value for the long term. And this is not an infomercial. That could be land. That could be your own business. That could be an investment in books and yourself. It could be a lot of things. But putting those dollars in the bank, that's crazy.
Tell us a little bit about why gold and silver is always going to, and has always, at least for the past 100 years, held its value and why it's such an important and smart investment.
Well, I just think it's part of the human story. I mean, people can ask, why do we like gold? Why do we go dig around and why do we have this massive effort to get it out of the ground and refine it and create things with it? That's a great question. And maybe we'll never know the true answer. Robert Kiyosaki calls it God's money. Some of the mystics called gold the tears of God. right? Which is basically it's gold like the sun. It has its own. You can do some weird things with gold. Gold can be stretched, and it's malleable. It doesn't tarnish. It has all these really strange properties, and 80% of like the gold that's known, like that we could get, has been already been extracted. So it's a finite resource. It's why it's a pretty good monetary metal. Most of it is kept throughout history, has still around, because it can be turned into something else. And same thing, pretty much with silver. Silver is not only a monetary metal, but it's an industrial metal. It's the most thermoconductive metal. It's used in things like medicine, like the antibacterial medicines they make with it are second to none. It's used in jewelry. It's used in, there's 500 ounces of silver in a Tomahawk missile, and we're depleting it as fast as we can. So you have this finite resource that's, look through the Bible. It's all throughout the Bible. Mentions of it. They don't, the thing is, nobody dives to the bottom of the ocean to get cash. I say this all the time. It's funny, but it's true. Like nobody's sending out explorations and teams to go, search for cash. No, they're going to find gold. And so I think it'll be a part of our story moving forward. And so will fiat currency, and so will central bank digital currencies. But if you want to know what true freedom is in the sense of in the monetary sense of you, like I've got on my desk here, I've got some silver eagles I bought yesterday at the shop, right? It came in. It's one of the reasons, like, you hear this sound. This is that's why they call it sound money, by the way. It's not just sound in the sense that it's sound and it's a good place to house value. No, like, it's the sound that it makes. It's a very unique sound. These are just 1 ounce silver eagles. You can buy these today for a little less than $40, and the all-time high of silver is $52.50. That was back in 1980. So now you have cheap silver. Like I said, 500 of these go in a Tomahawk missile. And EVs, electric vehicles, all that. So to me, these are money. That's what money is, right? I go to work. I spend my time doing whatever we do, blood, sweat, and tears. We work hard, and then you get paid or whatever, and you just house that value, you put it aside, and then you can got a representation of your work. And the reason that's a representation of your work is it took energy to get that out of the ground. It takes manpower, it takes logistics, it takes supply to have it minted, and you got a representation of that. When they go and they make something out of thin air, they debase and tax you and punish you for your hard work. So the harder you work, the less you earn. It's crazy, isn't it? Like, if you think about it, because the more more output you have to have, and there's something spiritual about that as well. We're awash in fake. So gold and silver, I think, in the coming years will be more important than they have been in a long, long time. The people will start having this conversation, and it's going to ultimately drive the prices to places we've never been before, because the dollar's never been where it's going, right? So, and the dollar's not going to zero, folks. The dollar's going digital. It's going to central bank digital currency. It's up to us to have our own systems, be our own bank. That's why I like what I do.
Now, I know you also worked with crypto. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on crypto, the sustainability, how much we should be relying on it, and things of that nature.
Love the fact that Bitcoin became a thing, that it's in our zeitgeist. Bitcoin's been good to me. I was some of the first 8 Bitcoin ATMs in this country in 2016. I started putting, what modest money I had. I got into Bitcoin ATMs and just trying to figure it out. I just relaunched Wise Wolf into another aspect, another branch of Wise Wolf is going to be crypto based, but really about Bitcoin. Love the fact that people are decentralizing and having that conversation. Some people in alternative media think that crypto was, put into the consciousness to get people to accept, central bank digital currency. I don't think so. If they did, they suck at this because,
Yeah.
people, the reason that they're having the conversations is that, oh, look at, why is Bitcoin, what was the Bitcoin white paper? What was it? Why was it put into effect after 2000 and 2008, 2009? Why did that come into effect? Well, it's because of what happened. It was the uh, too big to fail, too big to jail companies, the stuff that they did, the money, the currency creation, the debasement, the loss of saving, all this stuff. And Bitcoin really solves that problem by being completely fine. I mean, gold and silver are fine. There's only so much it'll ever be. But truly, Bitcoin, I mean, with 21 million that will ever be available, and then I've heard estimates that really only 16 million of that is because most of them are lost. There's millions that were lost that'll never be, whether even the founder, whoever that is, or whatever that is, Satoshi Nakamoto, those coins just sit there. So I like the fact that it creates conversations. Not every crypto is great. There's some junk out there and they pump and dump. And, you had Sam Bankman-Fried, the guy with the FTX, and they have these useful idiots they put out there and they smash them, and I think they'll use that. It's weaponized, but I do think, go back to Bitcoin. So am I buying other coins right now? No, I buy Bitcoin every day for my shop and for me, um, for supply. I take Bitcoin as payment, things like that. There are some other coins I like, and there's some other coins that could be great investments. But Bitcoin's very unique. So in the crypto space, am I going to buy more cryptos? Probably. But right now, I think it's something everybody should learn. Figure out how to have, get a wallet, use it, go peer to peer. There's some great wallets out there that you can get that are free and they're not hooked up to an exchange. And so your identity is not tied to them, but you have you have your keys, your wallet. And, if you're getting a little, I mean, I would say if you're saving a little bit, look at Bitcoin. I mean, again, BlackRock, all these big companies, it's really weird. I did a video back in January. I was driving from Missouri down to Texas, and I just flipped on a video. I was driving and I put it on my stream, and I just started streaming live, just kind of thinking. I go, guys, this is back when they just were about to launch the Bitcoin ETFs. And I said, you're going to want to watch this really closely. There's something weird here. It's almost like the old system is throwing a lifeline to itself, making it look like it's helping out crypto. But really, I think they're in real trouble. They're looking for some place to find value. I mean, we've built up these companies. This isn't your father's or grandfather's stock market, folks. These companies are built on nothing. We're not even worried about profit anymore. Like what? I mean, can you imagine if I made decisions like Bud Light did?
Right.
Like I would go out of business, but they don't go out of business because they have ties to the central bank. And that's ESG, environmental social governance, all these companies, they went woke and all this stuff. They lose all Disney. Like, wow, who makes these decisions? Well, it's like they're imploding. They have to follow these guidelines because the central banks, and this is history conspiracy 101, central banksters love communism. They love Marxism and cultural Marxism and Satanism, and they love it. They fund it. It's why the Bolsheviks had money from the richest bankers in the world. It's why Mao had money from Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. They love it, right? So this is like a paradigm shift that we weren't taught in school. But they do this now with ESG. It's kind of it's a more sanitized version of them funding commies. It's like they got environmental social governance, and it kind of comes from the top down and filters into these companies. And then you better play along if you want Vanguard to fund you or you want buy. So it was really weird when they went for Bitcoin. And I go, oh, so I go, pay attention to this. And they drove the price of Bitcoin to its all-time high. I go, it's coming. So I think Bitcoin was trading in the mid 30s at the time or low 30s. And I'm like, you guys should take a look at this. Something's about to happen. And of course, 2 months later, boom, Bitcoin's breaking its all-time high. I'm not so much concerned with that. I am the long haul here. The long haul is like all these currencies are changing. There's a revaluation of commodities. You just need to be nimble and understand that change is the order of the day. Like the constant is going to be the change. So look to that. Be prepared for, the coming months and years. It's going to get weird.
It seems like yourself and many others that I spoke with that dabble with it a lot are confident that at least Bitcoin is not easily compromised or impossible to compromise.
Well, nothing's impossible, but I do think it'd be really hard to do. See, like every other crypto leads back to a company or a person, right? Is it this paperwork that has to be filed? You're owner of X, you have a board, you have a board of directors, all that stuff. Bitcoin does not. Bitcoin was synonymous, and the only way you really could have done this is the way that it was done. It's pretty eerie, and a lot of people in our space think, well, that's got to be a op. Well, every once in a while the good guys win. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's true. And if you show me evidence otherwise, guess what? I'll change my mind. If you show me, because Bitcoin's been good to me. So if you show me where this is a deep state plot and, they're just trying to train people for the central bank digital currency. Again, if that's what they were doing, they suck at this, because what they did is they got a whole generation of people to go, oh, the dollar isn't real. If you think that's going to just make them go, well, now I really want the central bank digital currency. I mean, come on, so if that's the case, it didn't train them right. Same thing with Nigeria. They did the same thing.
Now, for the last few minutes we have, I want to get your insights into the bigger picture and the intended outcome of the agendas that we're seeing right now. We covered, of course, a little bit. It's obvious that there is a depopulation agenda. There is this technocratic control mechanism that they want to strengthen their overall control over humanity. I also see it as a spiritual war where there is an attack on the human connection to God or source and nature. It seems like it's a multifaceted attack on what we are as humans and our human experience.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, you're absolutely right though. Like everything is ultimately boils down to a spiritual attack. I mean, that's where we are. But the cool thing, like even me, it's like levels of. I'm not considering myself awake. I mean, I try. Like I think we're all trying to get there. Like we want to be enlightened. Like we want to be like the Buddha. That's what his last words were. Or it's basically I am awake. It's like we want to have that level of consciousness and be closer to God, closer to source. Everything in this world takes us backwards if we're embracing that. But that's, something that Socrates talked about. Jesus talked about that. You can't fall in love with the trappings of this world if you really want to transcend it. Like if you really want to be outside of the evil of this existence. And it's not that this existence has to be evil. I think there's beautiful things in life. Challenge makes life worth it, right? Having a beautiful family, having great connections, spending time in nature, traveling and reading a great book, having an experience that with life, that's great. But those who are at the top of the pyramid in this existence, they don't think like you and I. I think we have a false timeline. I think we have I talked about this on my show, Paratruther. Technologies, I think, has been suppressed. I think there's ample evidence to show that we should be a lot farther along. I think that the human condition, the human spirit has so many things that are attributes that make it overcome hardship and, that make it transcend these kind of times. That's why it never really tyranny never really lasts that long. I mean, it just kind of gets thrown off. Like there's revolution. It's again, they can get much deeper into this too, but the elites, using that word again, but it's a habit. But the parasitic class, they create their own opposition, right? They know that people naturally gravitate. There's these cycles of history where they start throwing off the ruling class and they start bucking against the system because there's too much oppression or too much wealth concentration. So they've created all these things for us to distract us and pit us against each other. But, I didn't think that I would see the kind of reaction and the kind of movement. So you go on Insta, maybe it's just the algorithm feeding me stuff. But if you go on the Instagram, you just see like more people doing spiritual things and picking themselves up out of the doldrums of this paradigm of, like, go to school and you get in debt and you get a house and you work for somebody, and and there you see all these young entrepreneurs and people that are just even making things and bringing things to market, or podcasters and talking about great ideas, experiencing life, just putting themselves out there. That's, to me, is a representation. That's, God is a creator, and He made all of us, and we're supposed to create. And those in power want to squelch that. It's why they want to stop the music. This is one of the reasons why those with the most amount of money don't fight the income tax. Why would they want to fight the system that keeps you suppressed? They don't fight regulation. Why would they want to fight a system that keeps you where they are? It's so funny to watch the progressives and the left, and they say we're going to tax the rich. I'm like, the rich brought that. They made that. They did that. You're a tool for them. Like, so all of this stuff to say that we're definitely not in Kansas anymore. I think people there's a hearts and minds issue with all this, and I think people are starting to become more and more aware of the nature of reality and the suppressed, not only spiritual side, to this, but just the suppressed potential side of all of us. And we're bigger and have more creative power and more potential than those who ruled over us, which is a good
Yeah.
news.
And I was talking to someone about this the other day, the possibility that we're just being shown our side of the story. We're being shown what we want to see because of the algorithms and what we interact with online. But also, if you put the phone down and go outside and just start talking with people, usually they don't share the same ideologies or desires that the woke left or progressive or insane views that are coming out of the media. And most people just want to live their lives and not be a part of the nonsense. So
It's so true.
all you have to do is most of the time just put down your phone and go talk with your neighbor and enjoy life, and none
I
of
know.
this ridiculous nonsense exists outside of it.
It's true. It's like that routine that Bill Hicks had, back in the early 90s. He was like, you ever watch CNN? He's like, there's all that, everything's war, famine, upheaval, all this stuff's happening. It's on fire. And he goes, and I just walk outside, look around, put my head out the window. It seems fine,
That's true.
and they just want you, myopic and then pit it against your neighbor and all this other. Yeah, most people don't share, this. I mean, we do live in insane times, and there's a lot of dumb, there's a lot of, unfortunate people. I think I called it the period we're in peak fluoride. We're in peak fluoride, and hopefully, there's a peak, and maybe we're on the downslope, and maybe the upside of the water being undrinkable, people will not have fluoride. I don't know, So there's something to be said about that. So again, even with everything, I'm still optimistic.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. We're in very critical times. And Tony, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Before we close out, tell everyone all about Wise Wolf, Gold and Silver, how to get involved and find out more.
Oh, again, yeah. Well, thanks for so much for having me on. It means a lot. Anytime you want to talk again, you just you let me know.
Definitely.
So yeah, Wise Wolf is my company for direct buys of gold and silver, platinum, anything. If you have gold and like you want to sell me gold and silver, you can. You want to buy it, you can. There's no minimums. I know what it's like not to have anything. I know what it's like to be down to your last 20 bucks. I get it. So and not that long ago, by the way. So I've created Wise Wolf it's the people's gold and silver exchange. We don't do a lot of these big companies, they want you to have such an X amount of money, to even really even talk to you. And that's why I created a program called Wolf Pack, which is low as 50 bucks a month for adults. And then we have one for kids called Wolf Cub. It's 35. So from 50 bucks all the way up to 5,000, like you can do automatic with me or a one-time purchase, and we pick your metals for you. It's delivered directly to your door. So I took that model where the big companies, they only want to talk to you if you have 50K or whatever, or 10K. I turned it on its head. So I want to, if you got $100 a month or 50 bucks a month, I want to talk to you. I want to make you part of this this buying collective. We got close to 1,200 people all over the country. I got 700 or so 5-star reviews. I almost have no negative feedback. People love their products. They usually upgrade. So I've got a little scale, and if you're buying from me, well, one, you can see and talk to me. You can actually come to the shop. You can, if you want an appointment with me, you can go through my people and actually get an appointment. Talk to me directly, anytime. And I usually give out my personal cell number to those that are purchasing. So we just created a family environment and for precious metals, and I'm always trying to learn and get the best deals. I mean, I don't know everything. I'm not perfect, but we definitely. Anytime I build an invoice, I'm sending you what I would send myself. So in these times when you got, fake news, fake currency, fake wars, fake politicians, with real consequences, get some real money out of this whole thing. And, we would love it if you get it from us. And that's how we support, not only the shop and my crew, but these broadcasts. And hopefully it was a good one today.
Wonderful, man.
I definitely enjoyed
essential information. And how can folks find you on the Arterburn radio transmission?
The best place to go is just arterburn.news, my website. I'm about to change that. We're going to have some updates there, but you can find most of the shows are on that feed there with the Arterburn radio transmission. And I have a podcast called Paratruther. They're usually on the same, but go ahead and subscribe to both. I kind of did one side by side, just to redundancy. But yeah, check it out. I mean, it's funny, today before I did the show, I was like 3/4 of the show and the alarm went off on my phone. It's like I'm handling, like I'm just an average person. I'm just a guy, like it's funny. I'm not, we handle all the things and normal people stuff. And that was funny because that's the first time that's happened in a while. And I'm like, hold on, folks, I got to actually disarm my house real quick. And I'm still talking about the gold and silver issues and all that stuff's going on. It's so funny. But that's the kind of stuff. And then we'll get into, I was talking about the Roman Empire. We did, that today. So it's a hodgepodge of, I call it the official broadcast of the apocalypse. And I'm down to do one live show a week. And then I have America Unplugged every Saturday with the legendary Don Jeffries and Billy Ray Valentine of the Infinite Fringe podcast.
Perfect. Tony, thank you so much. We'll definitely do this again. Lots more we can discuss. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. See y'all then.